Business to take care of before we get started with the business at hand. Former Commissioner Gatto, if he would come forward and stand right here. The other commissioners, if you line up in behind here, we're going to get a picture and want everybody's smiling face.
Stand on, Karen.
Somebody has some eyes, dude.
We thought we got rid of it. This plaque is presented to Jim Gatto in recognition of his service to the Metropolitan Planning Commission of Ashland-Davidson County from October 2nd, 2007 to August 31st, 2011. Great appreciation. This service is acknowledged by Mayor Carl Dean, Jim McLean, Chairman of the Planning Commission, Richard Bernhardt, Director of the Planning Commission.
Thanks, Jim.
Any changes to the agenda that we need to know?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Move we adopt the agenda.
Second.
Motion second to adopt. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Need approval of the minutes from September the 8th, 2011. If there's any changes or additions or corrections to be made, I'd like to hear them at this time. If not, is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Motion second to approve. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Recognition of council members, and it's going to be a little bit tough for a few weeks till we find out who all the new ones are by their faces. I know we've got Councilman McGuire and Councilman Hunt. Is there any others in the audience that I haven't called their name? Either one of you want to speak now, or you want to use your time later?
I'm going to do it now because I got a couple other amendments. But this item that we have, number 4, is on the consent agenda. And I'm just here to say that I appreciate the fine work that this body did in helping this young man get his business on the track. He's got a good business. I was out there today, and believe it or not, did some dry runs to make sure everything's working, and it's going to work fine. And I just came by to say thank you guys for the time that you spent and the staff to point him in the right direction, and I think it's going to be a good project. And again, I just want to say thank you for all the work that you did for the community.
Thank you, Councilman.
And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, thank you for affording the opportunity to speak to you today. And as always, appreciate all the service that you do for our city. I'm here today to speak regarding item number 10 on your agenda, the Duncanwood Reserve proposal. As you may recall, this item appeared before you at the July 28th commission meeting and was deferred until today. You also may recall that at that time, the staff recommended disapproval of the plan proposed by the applicant. Today, the staff is recommending approval of the plan proposed by the applicant. And what I'm frankly having trouble understanding is what has changed in the proposed plans that would warrant a change in recommendation. With all due respect to the staff, I really don't see a difference. I understand that a phase 1 and 2 have been added to the plan to satisfy the staff and commission's request to see a concept plan for the entire property. For the entire property that Monroe Harding is attempting to sell. I'm certainly not a project engineer, nor am I a professional planner, and I don't claim to be either. However, in looking at the 2 renderings that were included in the July staff report and today's staff report, the drawings look identical. Again, I understand that a phase 2 has been added, which would require a subsequent developer of the remaining portion of the property to connect a road through to Glendale Lane. But is that really what denotes a concept plan? To me, the more sensible thing to do would be to get Monroe Harding and the neighborhood to sit down together and devise a concept plan for the entire parcel. That way, both can come together and work on a plan that works for both the neighborhood and Monroe Harding. That way, in the future, a developer could look at the concept plan and understand that it would be the path of least resistance toward developing the property. Instead, we are looking at a plan that is coming together in a piecemeal fashion. I have to believe that if I was selling this land, I wouldn't want to hinder any future land sale by having a plan approved today that would mandate any future buyer build a road that would connect to the applicant's proposed road. If I was going to buy the land, I wouldn't want to have my hands tied to begin with by buying a parcel where I knew I had to build a road in a certain place. As I mentioned to you the last time I was here, the potential connection of Duncanwood to Glendale is what I perceive the neighborhood is most concerned with. What I would put forward to you is that good planning does not always make sense in the real world. What I mean by that is what sounds good in theory in an office setting or what looks good on paper, unfortunately, does not always pan out in real life. It doesn't take fully into account the situation on the ground. I know that the neighbors today will tell you anecdotal stories about their experiences of living in the neighborhood for decades, much like you could tell stories about your neighborhoods. They will tell you how it is virtually impossible to get out of the neighborhood and turn onto Granny White in the morning or turn into the neighborhood in the evening, and how they are constantly trying to battle traffic from Brentwood that is heading into town in the morning and out of town in the evening. Let's say theoretically that the road is connected all the way through from Duncanwood to Glendale. What is going to happen is drivers who want to bypass J.T. Moore school traffic either in the morning or afternoon will utilize this road as a cut-through. It doesn't seem to make much sense to make an already bad situation worse by adding cut-through traffic. And what is more, the Duncanwood Brookmead neighborhood is truly a pedestrian neighborhood with the streets being utilized by parents with young children, the elderly, and also the infirmed. There are no sidewalks on these streets, so in my opinion, it simply isn't safe to put additional cut-through traffic onto Duncanwood. Understand that no one is against Monroe Harding. I received several emails from Monroe Harding board members that claimed I was against Monroe Harding and wanted to hinder their mission. Nothing could be further from the truth. Likewise, neighbors are not opposed to Monroe Harding. By all accounts, Monroe Harding has been a gracious neighbor for decades. Everyone in the neighborhood recognizes Monroe Harding's right to sell their property and recognizes a buyer's right to develop it. What they are asking for, though, is for everyone to slow down for a second, take a step back and look at the whole puzzle, not just one piece of it. Surely there has to be a plan that can be found that has a point of ingress and egress where it makes the most sense, Glendale Lane. After all, Monroe Harding's main entrance is on Glendale with a secondary entrance on Granny White Court. Doesn't it make more sense to have them utilize those streets since those are the streets that they as property owners use themselves? Let's look at the whole property and try and find a plan that works for everyone instead of a partial plan that works for some but not others and does not consider the consequences that a future developer would have to face. I have to believe that Monroe Harding is limiting their options for selling the next phase of their property by predetermining the placement of a road connecting to the proposed road at Glendale. No one wants this process to drag on. The neighborhood and Monroe Harding could come together very quickly in the near future and arrive at a plan that works. Ideally, it would work for the current developer as well, and so that way everyone here could win. So with that, commissioners, I urge you to please consider disapproval of this plan. As I said, I would much rather us take a step back and look at the entire parcel and devise a plan that could work for everyone. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other councilman in the room that I've overlooked? Okay. Brenda, any items to be deferred?
Yes, there's one item to be deferred. It is item 11 on your agenda, and it's on page 7. It is a text amendment, 2011Z-012TX-001, and it's a request to amend the Metro Zoning Code by deleting a phrase from footnote 4A in Table 1712-020D and amending 1712-030 by adding in standards for the measurement of street setbacks on local streets and within urban design overlay districts. And the recommendation is to defer indefinitely.
Okay. Motion to defer item 11.
So moved.
Second. Motion second to defer item 11. All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? That is deferred. Items that are on consent agenda, please.
Okay. Before I read the consent agenda for our audience, If you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Planning Commission today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Planning Commission's decision to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Please be advised that you should contact independent legal counsel. For items on the consent agenda, these will be voted on at a single time. There will be no individual public hearings, and nor will the Commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the Commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. The first item on your consent agenda is the Antioch Priest Lake Plan Amendment on page 4. This is a request to amend the Antioch Priest Lake Community Plan 2003 update to change the land use policy from residential low-medium density to commercial arterial existing for property located at Murfreesboro Pike unnumbered, approximately 350 feet south of Vultee Boulevard, and the staff recommendation is to approve. The second item on the consent agenda is item 2, Russell's Retreat. This is a periodic review of an approved specific plan district known as Russell Retreat for properties located at 2801 and 2803 Smith Springs Road and at Starboard Drive, and this is approved for 138 townhomes, and the staff recommendation is to find this SP district active. There's another item on the consent that we could add to the consent agenda. It's item 3. There's been nobody here to speak for or against it. It is the 4608 Ashland City Highway. And if there's nobody here to object to it, we'll put this one on the consent agenda. Seeing nobody. And this is a request to rezone from from AR2A to SP mixed use and for final site plan approval for part of properties located at 4608 Ashland City Highway and a part of properties located at Ashland City Highway unnumbered, west of Briley Parkway. It's 2.99 acres, and it's to permit building contract supply and all uses permitted in the AR2A zoning district, and the staff recommendation is to disapprove. The next item on the consent agenda is item 4, Rhino Discount Muffler. This is a request to rezone from CS to SP Auto zoning and for final site plan approval for a portion of property located at 3556 Dickerson Pike to permit auto sales used, auto repair, and auto services and all other uses permitted by the CS district. The staff recommendation is to approve the preliminary SP with conditions and recommend to the staff a housekeeping amendment to the community plan and to defer final SP approval until conditions of approval are met. The next item on the consent agenda, which is on page 5 of your agenda, is item 5A. It's Camping World of Tennessee. This is a request to change from CA to SP auto zoning and for final site plan approval for properties located at 2620 and 2622 Music Valley Drive to permit heavy equipment sales and services and all other uses permitted by the CA zoning district, and the staff recommendation is to approve with conditions. Also on page 5, item 5B, which is Willie's Nightlife PUD cancellation. This is a request to cancel a portion of the Willie's Nightlife commercial PUD overlay located at 2620 and 2622 Music Valley Drive, which is approved for a campground, restaurant, and maintenance garage and a zone commercial attraction, and the staff recommendation is to approve. The next item on the consent agenda is on page 6, and item 6, Lenox Village Phase 3. This is a request for final site plan approval and a modification to the Build 2 zone standards for a portion of the Lenox Village UDO district located on a portion of property at 6130 Nolensville Pike to permit the development of 185 multifamily dwelling units within 8 buildings, a swimming pool, and to extend the right-of-way for Persia Way, and the staff recommendation is to approve with conditions. The next item is item 7, also on page 6. It's the Music City Outlet Center, and this is a request to cancel a portion of the Music City Outlet Center PUD overlay on property located at 2471 McGavick Pike. It was approved for a 4,400 square foot convenience market and is zone commercial attraction, and staff recommendation is to approve. Item 8 is the next agenda item, still on page 6. Rivergate Marketplace for the Panda Express. This is a request to revise the preliminary plan and for final site plan approval for a portion of the Rivergate Marketplace commercial PUD overlay located at 2125 Gallatin Pike to permit the development of a fast food restaurant with one drive-through lane. The next item is item 9, also on page 6, the Jardin de Belle PUD. It's a request to revise the preliminary plan and for final site plan approval for a portion of the Jardin de Belle PUD overlay on properties located at 620 and 624 Belle Park Circle to consolidate lots 5 and 6 into one lot, reducing the overall number of lots in the development from 28 to 27. Staff recommends approval with conditions. The next item is item 13 on page 8 of your agenda, and it's the Taylor Place SP. This is a periodic review of an approved specific plan district known as Taylor Place for property located at 1329 7th Avenue North and approved for 4 single-family lots. Staff recommendation is to find the SP inactive and direct staff to prepare a report to the council to continue the implementation of the development plan as adopted and that no rezoning is recommended on this property. The next item is item 14. It's the Old Mill SP. It's also on page 8 of the agenda. It's the periodic review of an approved specific plan district known as Old Mill for properties located at 8733 and 8311 Newsom Station Road, approved for 16 two-family units, 35 townhomes, and 197 single-family homes. And the staff recommendation is to find the SP inactive and direct staff to prepare a report to the council to continue the implementation of the development plan as adopted and that no rezoning is recommended on this property. The next item, item 15, on page 8, Sharondale Drive SP. This is the periodic review of an approved specific plan district known as Sharondale Drive for various properties located along Sharondale Drive between Hillsborough Pike and Woodlawn Drive on Sharon Hill Circle and Sharondale Court. It's approved to limit the number and size of duplex units and the size of single-family units, and staff recommendation is to find the SP district active. The next item is item 16 on page 8. That's the Lionhead Village Adults Restaurant. A request to revise the preliminary plan and for final site plan approval for a portion of the Lions Head Village PUD Overlay District on properties located at 4415 Post Place. It's to permit the enclosure of an existing patio, and staff recommends approval with conditions. The next item is item 17 on page 9 of your agenda, the Westport Business Park. This is a request to revise a previously approved concept plan to create 10 lots on property located at 7261 and 7273 Centennial Boulevard and at Centennial Boulevard unnumbered, and staff recommendation is to approve with conditions. And the next item is item 18 on page 9. It's 1617 Glen Echo. It's a request for final plat approval to create 3 lots and to remove the 50-foot recorded setback on properties located at 1613 and 1617 Glen Echo Road, and the staff recommendation is to approve. And the next item is item 19 under other business, and this is a contract between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County on behalf of the Nashville Area MPO and the Westat Inc. for professional services related to data collection activities for regional planning models, and the staff recommendation is to approve. And the final item, item 20, is on page 9 of your agenda. It's the 2012 Planning Commission filing deadlines and meeting schedule, and the recommendation is to approve.
Thank you, Brenda. Before we vote on this, is the applicant Charles Huddleston on this item 3, action of City SP, is he in the audience? Okay, thank you. Okay, you've heard the request from the staff for these items to be on consent, which are items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5A, 5B, 6, 7, 8, 9, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Is there a motion to approve those on consent?
Mr. Chair, before a motion is made, I need to recuse myself from the consent agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
So note, Mr. Secretary. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second. Motion second to approve these items on consent. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Those items are now on. Those have been approved on consent. The 2 items left that'll be on public hearing today are item 10 and 12. So all the others the business has been taken care of. So
Commissioners, this is item number 10. It's the Duncanwood Reserve Concept Plan. The request is for a concept plan to permit a subdivision of 15 single-family lots and a future street connection to Glendale Lane on a 30-acre parcel owned by Monroe Harding. Staff recommends approval with conditions. This project is located in the Green Hills Midtown sub-area. It's about a half-mile south of Lipscomb University, and the Monroe Harding School campus is located on the western side of this property. And this case was originally heard before the Planning Commission on July 28th. The concept plan request at that time was for a smaller portion of this site. It's the portion outlined in red, where a 15-lot residential subdivision is proposed. The 15-lot portion is still proposed within that area, but the concept plan boundary has been enlarged to include the entire parcel. The existing zoning is R20. And this is the concept plan proposal from that July 28th Planning Commission meeting for the 15-lot subdivision. The entrance to that subdivision is proposed from Duncanwood Drive to the north, and all 15 lots are proposed along that public street, which terminates in a temporary turnaround at the southern end of the property. I'm sorry, at the southern end of the street. The recommendation from planning staff at that meeting was disapproval. The original concept plan proposal did not provide a plan, or did not include a plan for the entire Monroe Harding property that would ensure appropriate street connectivity for future development within the Monroe Harding property. And here's the current plan, the updated plan, and this includes the entire Monroe Harding parcel again. And this plan, the plan for 15 lots from the last meeting, has been incorporated and is still part of this in phase 1, shown in blue. Other portions of the concept plan show phase 2, a future phase of development, and also the Monroe Harding campus. The requirement for appropriate street connectivity with future development has been added in this concept plan and has been added as a note. And here's that note as part of the concept plan. It states that any future subdivision of land within phase 2 shall include the dedication and construction or the bond for construction of a public street to connect Glendale Lane to the public street in phase 1 in a manner that will comply with section 3.9, which is the requirements for streets of the subdivision regulations, for providing street connectivity with design elements to encourage the reduction and calming of traffic. And this note, combined with the inclusion of the entire Monroe Harding property in the concept plan, provides the assurance for future street connectivity that was missing from the previous concept plan submittal. With future subdivision of the Monroe Harding property, this note will essentially require the dual intent of the subdivision regulations to provide local street connectivity without encouraging large amounts of through traffic. And with the incorporation of the entire parcel into this concept plan and the added note ensuring the appropriate street connection with the future subdivision, staff recommends approval with conditions.
Hearing, the applicant will be given 10 minutes. You can reserve 2 minutes of that time for rebuttal if you would like. Are you speaking for the applicant? Okay. Come forward, give us your name and address, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, good afternoon. My name is Nicky Wells. I'm the engineer for the applicant, Anchor Investments. The plan before you is for 15 residential lots on 8.1 acres. We were here at the July 28th meeting, which at that meeting we requested and did receive an indefinite deferral. We did this due to conversations at that meeting revolving around 2 points of emphasis. First was the overall plan of the Monroe Harding tract, or lack thereof, and then secondly was with regards to street connectivity. With regards to an overall plan, that is part of the submittal that you have before you tonight. In it, phase 1 is delineated as the 15 lots, residential lots that are proposed. And then phase 2 is the remainder property, the property that has potential for future development. And then phase 3 would be the Monroe Harding facility per their master plan. As for street connectivity, we have met with staff, planning staff, on numerous occasions. We went through an iterative process with the planning staff, resulting in the plan you have before you. We concluded Duncanwood Drive is the only feasible connection point, with the exception of Glendale Lane, which is not part of the 8.1 acres. So that would leave the opening for connectivity to Glendale Lane. At the end of the 15 lots is a temporary turnaround. That gives us the ability, or gives the ability for Monroe Harding, if that property in phase 2 is developed, to connect to that roundabout or that turnaround, creating a permanent roundabout, which in and of itself would act as a traffic calming device and have a traffic calming effect. In addition, we've added the note that Greg mentioned that states the requirements for the design of the phase 2 of the remainder tract with potential for development with regards to the connectivity to Glendale Lane and additional traffic calming devices per the subdivision regulations. Tonight you'll hear from surrounding neighbors that are in opposition to this plan for various reasons. We are sensitive to that. We have had a community meeting. We have met with the neighborhood steering committee, and even if they didn't like the answers that we gave, we have been open and honest and given answers to anyone that's asked of it from us. We have reviewed the staff conditions of approval, and we have no objections. We've addressed the comments from the July meeting that you as commissioners had with regards to the connectivity and the overall plan, as well as addressing the comments from planning staff as evidence from their recommendation for approval tonight. This plan meets all of the requirements of the subdivision regulations. This plan meets all of the requirements of the zoning ordinance. Therefore, we respectfully ask for your approval tonight. I'd like to reserve the remaining time for rebuttal.
Could be allowed 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Ones here in favor that have signed up to speak are David Kleinfelter, John Ohlert, Kathy Stevenson, John Brittle, and Mary Baker. So if y'all would line up in order and speak, you'll be allowed 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm David Kleinfelter from the firm of Reno and Kavanaugh, 424 Church Street here in Nashville. I represent the landowner, Monroe Harding. We could parade dozens. I mean, Monroe Harding has lots of supporters, and we could parade all of them here to tell you how wonderful Monroe Harding is and all the wonderful things they do. But as you know, that's not why you're here. You're here about the plat. So we're going to respect your process and not sort of pack the room that way with folks. But you will hear a little bit from some people directly associated. In the end, what you have in front of you is a subdivision plat request that meets the subdivision regulations. The RS zoning would allow for 3 of these 15 lots to be duplexes, but the applicant isn't asking for that. There's 15 lots. They will all be single family. This is R20 property, so they could be duplexes, but they're not doing that. So there's 3 fewer than the maximum density. The plat utilizes the cluster lot option, which for exactly the purpose the cluster lot option was designed, to preserve the floodplain and some of the natural areas that are on this property. Those of you familiar with it, it runs down to the creek. The plat connects to Duncanwood Drive. That's likely to be the biggest thing you hear. Duncanwood Drive was platted in 1950, and Monroe Harding's property had access to it in 1950. It's been there. It's always there. To remove their access would be a problem. You may hear that there were some folks in the neighborhood who submitted an application to close that right-of-way. Not surprisingly, Monroe Harding couldn't sign on to that application to close off their access to a public right-of-way that had been there for 61 years. So it was presented. Public Works recommended disapproval of closing that right-of-way access, and the Traffic and Parking Commission recommended disapproval of that, closing that access. Several years ago, at the request of a neighbor, the one who requested the closing of the access, Monroe Harding built for them a privacy fence. It's our understanding that that property owner, because the privacy fence was actually in a little bit of right-of-way, would like to have that part of the right-of-way abandoned. Monroe Harding, once this is all approved and moving forward, is glad to have that little sliver abandoned if it's not needed for this road to access. And if you look at the triangle, I'm not going to go into depth because I don't have time, there's room to do that, so they'd be glad to work with them. All in all, it meets with the regulations. I've been asked about the street shown through to the property. Never in the history of Metro, to our knowledge, that we've been able to find, nor was staff able to find for me, where you have actually required an applicant to subdivide property that's not theirs, or not the applicant, of course, here is Anchor. And so we think that would be a problem, but we appreciate your approval.
Thank you.
Should I start?
Yes, please give us your
Hi,
name.
I'm Mary Baker. I'm the CEO of Monroe Harding at 1120 Glendale Lane. As many of you probably know, we've been in the community since 1893, and we give kids who are in state custody from birth to 23 a chance by providing homes, continuing education, and jobs. Like all nonprofits, we have to be smart about how we use our resources, and to that end, in 2007, the board did a study of how best to use the campus and determined that we would only retain 10 acres of that property, and the rest would be put up for sale and for a good use. We want it to be in keeping with the neighborhood, the tone and tenor and look of the neighborhood. We've done two things since we were here last. One was to meet with the neighbors. We asked to meet with all of the Duncanwood neighbors, and it was suggested that we meet with their steering committee, which we did. Anchor Investments was at that meeting as well. The steering committee told us at that meeting that if we were not going to abandon the access to Duncanwood, then they didn't really have any ideas to share that they would share with us at that time. We have since talked to a number of the neighbors, however, who are interested in continuing the conversation about how best to preserve open space. Quite a bit of this is in the floodplain, and so even though the current application before you includes open space, we have other property that will go up for sale that will also include open space, and we look forward to working with the neighbors to preserve that in a way that will be useful for everybody. The other thing we've done, as has been mentioned before, is that we've met with Planning Commission or talked to Planning Commission staff, have tried to make sure we address all their concerns. We feel like we have. We're ready to move forward and to abide by what they have recommended. And so we hope that you will approve this application, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
My name's John Ohlert. I was here in July, and it's good to see you again this afternoon. I live at 5304 Lancelot Road in Nashville. I've been a board member at Monroe Harding for 6 years. I was on the property committee long before that, and I'm currently chair of the property committee. And I support the proposal before you. And I want to take just a moment to tell you a little bit how we got to where we are today. A group of board members, staff, and other volunteers met for 3 days in April of 2007. Our goal was to figure out how we could use our assets to improve the fulfillment of our mission, which is to bless at-risk children with an opportunity to have a better life. The very thoughtful process included an evaluation of our property. It became apparent that we do not need all the land that was so useful when Monroe Harding opened as an orphanage on the site in 1935. In the spirit of being good neighbors, we reached out to those living near Monroe Harding to tell them about our master planning process and our intent to sell land. In that regard, you've received a letter in your file from Lee Jones. I have a copy if you don't. His group assisted Monroe Harding with the master plan. He outlines in his letter in great detail the multiple times we reached out to the surrounding neighbors. We've also made it clear that we are working with the developer of the property to ensure that the subdivision is an asset to all the neighborhood. That includes building a reduced number of homes than what the current zoning allows. We believe the plan before you today achieves the goals set by the approved master plan, as well as addressing all the conditions set by the planning staff. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I hope you will approve the plan.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kate Stevenson. I'm Vice Chairman of the Board of Monroe Harding. I've been on the board for 6 years, and I was on the property committee when we started exploring the path that has led us here today. As I said to you in your July meeting, the sale of this property is vital to the future of Monroe Harding, as envisioned by our active and committed board of directors. The proceeds from the sale will be used for much-needed and long-delayed capital improvements and to bolster Monroe Harding's endowment so that we can confidently predict another 120 years of serving at-risk youth in Davidson County and throughout Tennessee. Your approval of this proposal will allow us to turn unused property into a critical resource. Monroe Harding has been located on this campus and has been part of this community since 1934. We have been and want to continue to be good neighbors. That is why we determined from the very beginning of this process that we wanted to be mindful of the nature of the proposed development. And that is why we have met with our neighbors to explain our vision for the future of the campus. With this proposal, I think we've succeeded in those goals of raising funds while ensuring that the property continues to be consistent with the neighborhood. This development will be compatible in land use with the surrounding area. It will not require zoning changes. It will result in fewer homes and less density than could be built under current zoning. We appreciate the work of the planning staff, and we now hope that you will give your support to this proposal as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the commission, thank you. My name is John Brittle. I'm a real estate broker here in Nashville. I'm on the Monroe Harding board and on the property committee. I'm here today as a land developer and professional in the neighborhood, and my friends have mentioned that more units could have been built. I think more importantly, as a lover of open space, is that we could have built the same number of units on 6 acres instead of 8, because every one of our lots are out of the floodplain. We could have utilized some of that floodplain land for backyards and designed it differently and used 6 acres for 12 lots and used 25% of those lots for 2 units and gotten our 15 units. As I can tell you, because my team and I sell the majority of them, those houses that were 2 on a lot sell for the very nearly, if not exactly the same amount as houses on 1 lot. Now, you don't have to like that, but that density is not, to me, as important as they're buying 8 acres and an extra 2 is going to be open. So we could have built more units, yes. So 2 ways this developer could have used more density and less land, and they chose not to because they really believe that Monroe Harding wants it to look a certain way, even though as a nonprofit, we can't be a developer. I would add that in the 3 years there was a sign on this property, fully 1/4 of the neighborhood behind us has changed. That's representative of Green Hills, and about 1/4 of those 60 neighbors have been there over 30 years. Interestingly enough, 1/4 of them have been there less than 3 years while our property has been for sale. So I certainly hope that nobody is surprised that we're selling this land to continue our mission. Thank you very much, and I hope you'll support our proposal.
Thanks, sir. Okay, the speakers against the project, Bill Sanders has a list of people that'll be speaking with a PowerPoint, and there's 3 people that are not on that list that have signed up. Is Herman Parton, Hank Keeling, and Richard Light will be allowed to speak at this time for the PowerPoint. If you would like to, you've signed up to speak. Okay. If you want to speak, come on, please come forward. And
just one note, before you started, there was a letter from Friends Live that is for nonprofit. Do you have that in front of you, please? Take time to scan through that, because they are for nonprofit and they're very concerned about the safety of their clients. Thank you very much.
And your name, please?
Herman Parton, 1114 Brookmead Drive.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Hank Keeling, 1145 Duncanwood Drive. My wife and I have lived in the neighborhood for 20 years now, and we're both very concerned about the additional traffic that this proposed development would cause, and particularly with the idea of a eventual cut through to Glendale. I know coming home from my job up Granny White that the traffic is very heavy, backed up. People get anxious to get home, understandably, in the afternoon. And also with the school there at John Trotwood Moore, it can get kind of hard even earlier in the day to get through that intersection at Glendale and Lone Oak. And I proceeded, if there was a cut through, to get over to Glendale and on over to the Oak Hill area of Nashville, that people would make quite a bit of use of that. And so with all respect, I hope y'all consider that in your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keelan.
My name is Dr. Richard Light. I bought a house on Duncanwood, 1130, on the 7th of August of this year. My son and daughter-in-law and granddaughter will be living there. I have lived in cul-de-sacs and single-entry subdivisions in several places around the country. And I know firsthand that single access limits the traffic in those areas to people who have business in those areas. And my concern in this whole situation is not the 15 houses over there, but it's the connection to Glendale and making a track there, as was described by Councilman McGuire, and I strongly support what he had to say on that situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, the speakers for the PowerPoint then will now start.
Hi there, I'm Patsy Parton. I live at 1114 Brookmead Drive, and we're here to show you that the developer has not submitted a complete concept plan and still does not meet Section 2.8 of the subdivision regulations. The owner and developer are now tied together by submission of phases 1 and 2 of the concept plan. They can no longer claim that they are separate and have no choices because they are now in the concept plan together. The owner and developer have disregarded instructors from the commissioners and have refused to discuss with the Neighborhood Steering Committee any alternatives other than an entrance into Duncanwood Drive. If the Metro Planning Commission approves this plan, then the residents of Duncanwood and Brookmead, as well as the residents of the new Duncanwood Reserve, will most likely have a 2,400 long-foot cul-de-sac to deal with, and 25% increase in people and traffic. Street connectivity needs to be shown on the concept plan. Right now, there's just a note, and a note is not sufficient to ensure this connectivity. We will show that there are viable alternative plans for this subdivision. There has been no traffic study required or performed, and these traffic issues are the cause of our school buses not even servicing Duncanwood and Brookmead. If you have a child on Duncanwood or Brookmead, school buses do not come down that road. The owner and the developer are planning to demolish a historical landmark on the Monroe Harding property that the Historical Commission has recommended to be preserved. There are serious safety issues related to increased neighborhood traffic, and they're several years ahead of construction traffic. The plan from July 28 and the current plan are going to be shown next. This is the plan from July 28. This is the plan, our current plan, October 13th. And here are the plans side by side. And the owner and the developer have negotiated the purchase of additional property and agreed on an easement for a temporary turnaround. Thank you.
My name is Josh Bergner, and I live at 1140 Brookmead Drive. According to the minutes from the July 28th meeting when this was first presented, a couple of points were made. Mr. Sloan stated that the land for sale did not have to be sold all at once, but there had to be a full master plan for how the property was going to be used. Mr. Clifton stated that there had to be a, quote, win-win solution between the neighborhood and the developers, and he stated that the July plan did not meet that criteria. Mr. Ponder echoed those sentiments and called the July 28th plan, quote, half done. There was a motion to approve the staff's recommendation disapproving this plan. But Mr. Clifton said he wasn't ready to start from scratch. Instead, he suggested that there be a deferral so more information could be gathered and that the parties involved could, quote, get creative. Now, here's the new plan. And as you can see, there isn't much difference between this plan and the plan presented in July. In fact, the only real difference I can see is 4 words, Phase 1 and Phase 2, something that the councilman echoed when he spoke earlier today. The truth is, your instructions have not been followed. Mr. Sloan's instructions about a full concept plan do not appear. the applicant has not presented a master plan for the entire property. The plan here is not the win-win that Mr. Clifton asked for because the applicant has refused to consider anything other than an ingress and egress point from Duncanwood Drive. Mr. Ponder, respectfully, this plan was half done in July and it's still half done in October. Mr. Clifton wanted the parties to get creative, but there's nothing creative about a cul-de-sac that is no longer surrounded by houses or with a notation that says there will be a road developed in the future. In July, the Commission was not ready to overrule the staff's recommendation. We submit that in October, you all should be. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Griggs Brandaw, and I live at 1122 Duncanwood Drive with my husband and 3 children. The concept plan is still not complete and does not comply with Section 2, 8.1 of the subdivision regulations. The planning staff has changed their recommendation, even though the concept plan still does not comply with the same section they cited before in July in disapproving the concept plan. Why is that? The instructions of the commissioners at the July 28th Metro Planning Commission meeting have been soundly ignored by the owner and developer in resubmitting their incomplete concept plan. In Section 2, 8.1 of the subdivision regulation, it states, "The Planning Commission shall require that the subdivision and development of such parcel of land allow for the future opening of streets by restricting building locations." The planning staff has not set this as a condition for approval in their recommendations. Without the commissioners restricting building locations in Phase 2, the owner could sell the entire parcel without subdividing it, and the Metro Planning Commission would not have jurisdiction to review the sale, creating a permanent paper road for Metro to deal with and a permanent cul-de-sac for the residents. I urge you to vote to disapprove. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Pam Pilcher, 1132 Duncanwood Drive. Duncanwood Brookmead today is a cul-de-sac neighborhood. The proposed subdivision plan adds a new cul-de-sac into this neighborhood 2,400 feet from the nearest connector street. This is 3 times the distance allowed in Section 3.9 of the subdivision regs. In September, the owner told us they have no plans for development of Phase 2 of their property. If there is no Phase 2 development, both existing and new subdivisions are doomed to a perpetual cul-de-sac. As you can see in the photo depicted here, the plan is just like the cul-de-sac at the end of Brookmead Drive in the upper right-hand corner, just above the white line. This proposed cul-de-sac has been in existence since it was designed 60 years ago. It has never crossed Monroe Harding property, as was its original intent. The owner is under no obligation to subdivide Phase 2. If the property noted as Phase 2 is sold for purposes other than a subdivision, a church, school, retirement living, this would not be reviewed by the Metro Planning Commission, but would go before the Board of Zoning Appeals. The subdivision regulations and your own instructions from July 28th require the owner's concept plan to show where the future road will be dedicated. Metro planners should disapprove a paper road that will doom both old and new residents to a 2,400-foot long cul-de-sac forever, as depicted in the red line here in this diagram. Section 2.8 of the subdivision regs state a plan of re-subdivision shall be depicted on the concept plan unless the applicant can demonstrate the need for such future street connectivity is unnecessary. It also states the Commission shall require that future dedications providing for the opening and extension of such streets be so indicated on the plat. The owner should be required by the Metro Planning Commission to provide a bond now for construction of a public street to connect Glendale Lane and show how it will be connected. Thank you. Please disapprove.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Allison Lott, and my family and I live at 1140 Duncanwood Drive. Some Metro subdivision regulations may contain unclear directives based on the details of any given case. Whenever interpretation of unclear meanings are necessary to review such a case, the Commission should consider the impact on all parties. All parties have a right to appeal the Commission's decision to the Chancery Court. Despite their claim that they have tried to work with the neighbors, we can assure you that the only meetings that have been held have been at the neighbors' insistence and with the help of our councilman, Sean McGuire. At a September meeting set up by the neighbors, the owner and the developer both said that, quote, having no entrance onto Duncanwood Drive is a non-starter, end quote. There are viable alternatives to the design of this subdivision that neither the owner nor the developer have been willing to consider or discuss, which you will see in a few moments. The owner claims that they only want to sell the north part of their land. Anchor claims that they don't have a choice but to buy the land the owner is willing to sell. However, they have already amended their original contract to include more land and an easement for a temporary turnaround. With the addition of Phase 2 to the concept plan, these arguments that they are powerless to find any other solution have no credibility. They are both inexorably tied together by the concept plan and cannot argue that they are each helpless to find alternative plans because of each other. On the next slide, you'll see again the original plan submitted, which is on the left, and on the right, the current plan showing the additional property and the easement. I vote to ask you to vote to disapprove.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alexander Brandahl, and I live at 1122 Duncanwood Drive with my wife and 3 children. We've developed some alternative plans and designs that could provide a win-win-win scenario that the commissioners wanted to see from the owner. While we consulted with a civil engineer, the following concepts are for illustration purposes only and do not purport to be engineering drawings. The first drawing shows how the entire subdivision could be turned around and connected to Glendale Lane. The pink area is the subdivision turned around, and the yellow indicates the possible additional homes, as you can see before you. The second drawing shows how 2 lots could be sold for houses specifically on Duncanwood Drive, for which buyers are currently available. The new subdivision would then open onto Glendale Lane, and the cul-de-sac street would be even shorter. On the other side of Glendale Lane, there are already several cul-de-sac and cluster home developments, so that concept would fit right in with the current demographics and setup of Glendale Lane, without disrupting the nature of the Duncanwood neighborhood. We've illustrated that here in this particular drawing that's before you now. I encourage you to vote for disapproval of this particular plan.
Thank you.
Chris Lott, 1140 Duncanwood Drive, and I'd like to point out the developer submitted a plan on August 14th that showed a connecting road from the Duncanwood Reserve to Glendale Lane. They chose to withdraw that plan in favor of showing that one that shows no connecting roads. Again, a note promising dedication of a street and a bond was added at the bottom of the concept plan, but only if Phase 2 is ever subdivided. If the remaining property is sold for a church or anything else, it will not be subdivided in Phase 2, and it will not come before the Metro Planning Committee for review. I'd also like to point out there's been no traffic study done to show the impact of adding the daily traffic from the new subdivision to the current traffic on Duncanwood, which again must all enter and exit on Granny White Pike. With a new badly needed stoplight scheduled to be added at Granny White Pike and Shackleford Drive, the access to Duncanwood could be adversely affected by the addition of 30-plus cars. There are 3 schools and a major university within a half-mile from where Duncanwood Drive and Granny White intersects. That already creates serious traffic issues. And as the illustration shows, the schools are Lipscomb Elementary, Moore Middle School, Lipscomb University, and Lipscomb High School. The red circles are current or planned stoplights, and the yellow is the intersection of Duncanwood and Granny White. And again, we talked about briefly is school buses currently will not service the children of Duncanwood or Brookmead because of scheduled delays caused by the difficult egress onto Granny White Pike. Turning this new subdivision south will allow those children to access school buses on Glendale Lane, just as students from Monroe Harding and other cluster student subdivisions already do now. Thank you, and vote for disapproval.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Betty White, 1126 Duncanwood Drive. When you drive down Glendale Lane, if you look directly to the right, you will see a silver historical marker that has 3 gold stars. That indicates that the Tennessee Historical Commission has determined that the campus is worthy of being placed on the National Historical Register. The Metropolitan Historical Commission is encouraging the applicant to retain the Residence Hall Library built in 1934 and recommends adapting that building for additional use. This historical Davidson County building is currently being slated by the developer for demolition to make way for the new street into Duncanwood Drive. The retention and repurposing of this building could be accomplished by turning the new subdivision south to Glendale Lane. as shown on the drawing in front of you. The building which we're talking about is located in the north part of this site. When I spoke with Ann Nielsen of the Historical Planning Commission, she expressed concern that actually the developer wasn't even considering anything but the demolition of this historical landmark. At the July 28th meeting, Commissioner Clifton actually said, we need to wait and we need to find a win-win for all parties. As presented earlier, turning the egress onto Glendale Lane creates that win-win for all of us. The developer would be able to continue its proposed plan for the development. The Duncanwood Brookmead neighborhood would continue to have the peace and tranquility and safety it has now. And we would be able to preserve the historic landmark that exists now and that we would like to have in our community. Thank you. I urge you to vote for the win-win and disapprove the plan as presented.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leslie Reese. I live at 1107 Brookmead, and I've been in the neighborhood for 18 years. There are serious safety concerns related to the current concept plan. A long cul-de-sac added to a neighborhood that is already a cul-de-sac should be of great concern to all the emergency services departments. The construction of infrastructure and homes on Duncanwood Reserve could take years, given the current housing market. During this time, families and children who walk or ride our streets will be threatened by the construction traffic. This traffic will also create additional congestion at the intersection of Duncanwood and Granny White Pike. A condition of approval should require the developer to route all construction traffic from Glendale Lane onto a temporary road through Phase 2, eliminating some of the safety issues on Duncanwood and traffic problems on Granny White Pike. This can easily be achieved since Browns Creek flows along the eastern side of the property with only a small drainage stretch crossing the southern part of the property. Finally, the proposed Duncanwood Court intersection violates national traffic safety design standards with angles significantly less than 75 degrees. It also violates at least 3 sections of Metro's driveway ordinances and creates a 7-point smash zone as indicated on the drawing that I've given you. And also, this plat and information was contained in a letter sent to the Metro Planning Commission by Louise Parker with explicit documentation of these violations. Approval will expose Metro to significant financial liability from negligence per se claims filed by injured motorists and pedestrians. I urge you to preserve the safety of Duncanwood Drive and vote to disapprove this plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jerry Kimbrough, 1141 Brookmead Drive. Thank you for having us. The mission statement of the Planning Commission expresses a commitment to the preservation of distinctive and diverse neighborhood character. The distinctive character of our quiet neighborhood lies in the small, quaint homes lining 2 very curvy and hilly streets. In 2003, when developers were poised to buy and bulldoze available homes, the Planning Commission supported our bid to rezone and thus preserve the distinctive character of our neighborhood. The diverse character of our neighborhood includes retired 50-year residents, a cross-section of working professionals, and joyfully, many new young families. We have no sidewalks. So for moms with strollers, kids with pets and bikes, people who would like to jog or simply walk and talk, our streets are our single only option. We feel safe on foot on these 2 quiet streets, but add all the potential new drivers and construction traffic from the proposed development, or worse yet, drivers from all over the area cutting through our neighborhood, and that sense of being safe on foot will disappear, taking with it a beautiful piece of the sense of community that brought as many of us as were able here today. Please, what is reasonable about forcing school and rush hour traffic from the proposed development to line up on Duncanwood Drive with the rest of us, waiting for a chance to jump into what is already bumper-to-bumper traffic on Granny White Pike? If the cul-de-sac opens onto Glendale Lane, those drivers will have the option to not use Granny White Pike at all, and you will have prevented a bad situation from becoming worse. Furthermore, if traffic lights are in place to safely and efficiently manage traffic flow, how does opening one or both of our streets as a cut-through from Glendale Lane qualify as safe and efficient traffic management, when in fact it encourages drivers, cell phones in hand, to dodge existing traffic lights and cut through the hilly, curvy streets of my neighborhood? Finally, my property taxes have gone up 400% since 1990 and still no sidewalks. Increasing school zone and rush hour traffic has put an end to school bus service where it used to exist in our neighborhood. We bless Monroe Harding and they're wanting to sell and develop their property, but please don't bully us into having to bear the brunt of it on safety and neighborhood satisfaction issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Sanders. I live at 1133 Duncanwood Drive, and I'm going to quickly summarize for you so we can get on with your business and let you discuss this. As we showed you before at the beginning of this presentation, the developer and owner have not submitted a complete plan, and they still don't meet Section 2.9. Also, you'll notice Section 2.8. Section 3.9 also, in the terms of the length of the cul-de-sac, is not covered because it's not an 800-foot cul-de-sac. It's a 2,400-foot cul-de-sac. Phases 1 and Phase 2 of the concept plan tie these two together, the owner and the developer. They flagrantly disregarded your instructions from the last meeting, and frankly, they have not been willing to discuss with us. Some of these plans you saw today were talked to them about verbally, and they said that they would only talk about it if there was ingress or egress onto Duncanwood Drive. The street connectivity needs to be shown on the concept plan. A note is not sufficient. We've shown that there are viable alternative plans for the subdivision. There's been no traffic study. School buses can't service our neighborhood now because of traffic. The historical landmark is about to be torn down forever. There are serious safety issues for the residents related to increased neighborhood traffic. In conclusion, we would like to ask the planning commissioners to disagree with your staff planners and disapprove this concept plan. We've shown you this plan should not be approved both in regulations and in general concept. Your disapproval tonight will allow the stakeholders in this part of Green Hills to get together, sit down with the planning staff in a charrette process, and find an equitable win-win-win urban plan that all of us can be proud of. We ask you to disapprove Duncanwood Reserve tonight. Thanks for your attentiveness to this long presentation.
Thank you. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Motion second, close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'm sorry. You will be allowed 2 minutes.
Thank you. Again, my name is Nicky
Jump
Wells.
ahead of you, sorry.
For the applicant, Anchor Investments. I guess there's not a whole lot to respond to there, but I would like to make a few comments, and I can be here to answer any questions you may have. With regards to traffic, to keep this in perspective, we're proposing 15 lots here. That's in addition to an existing subdivision with 60 lots. If you add the two together, that still doesn't warrant any type of traffic study or whatnot. The connection to Glendale, or the future connection to Glendale from Duncanwood is a requirement made from staff that we're abiding by. As far as the applicant or owner, we would be fine leaving it as a permanent cul-de-sac. That's the reason that plan did change along the course of this submittal. And at the July meeting, just to reiterate, that was not about the design of our current 15-lot subdivision. That was about an overall plan, which we have submitted, and that was about connectivity. And with regards to the overall plan, while we're not showing layouts of lots, as owner Monroe Harding is not willing to do that at this time for understandable reasons, there is only one way to get back to Glendale. And while drawing a straight line there is uncreative, some minor variation of that is the only option that we have. Due to site constraints, floodplain easements, the layouts that they've showed before you aren't feasible. But some variation of what you see on the overall concept plan allows for that connectivity. So I've also spoken with Public Works with regards to the connection on Duncanwood. There's adequate site distance there. based on how that connection is made at the curve, there is actually a greater than normal amount of sight distance based on that condition. Thank you for your time. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Okay. We have a motion second to close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, you start with Hunter.
I guess I'd like first for the staff to respond to the suggestion that the plan does not meet the subdivision regs. And specifically, I guess 2-8.1 and 3.9 were the two portions of the subdivision regs that were cited.
With respect to 2.8, I think the opposition pointed out that the applicant was required to, let me just flip back to 2-8. I think the requirement on 2-8 that the opposition rep spoke of was depicting, was showing future connections on the plat. And, again, that was part of the staff recommendation on the 28th, was that part of the need for a concept plan for the entire site was to show street connectivity, to meet 3-9, to show interconnected streets and also a street system that doesn't encourage large amounts of through traffic. And by putting the note on the plat and by including the entire property in the concept plan, they're basically stating that they intend, with future development on phase 2, to provide that interconnected street network consistent with the subdivision regulations.
Before you move on to the next subject, two questions. One, that requirement runs with the property, not the owner?
That's right.
And does the condition state that the property cannot be further developed without the road connection, or cannot be further subdivided?
Subdivisions.
Okay. Okay. Now, I guess 3.9.
3-9. Okay, and again, 3-9 is about the connectivity, is about the requirements for streets. And I think the part that was cited was the length of the cul-de-sac. And I'll go back, I'm going to use this slideshow that they used just to show the image. They made the point that the proposal is a 2,400-foot long cul-de-sac. And because this existing Duncanwood area, it isn't connected to the rest of the neighborhood, but it does provide for fire safety or for emergency vehicles, it does provide a turnaround. And it seems to me that possibly that the length of cul-de-sac is meant for, possibly those life safety concerns. And, in this case, this would be, it wouldn't be this whole thing, it would be this length. And, that does meet the requirements of the subdivision regulations.
Great, thank you. And then, sorry, I didn't get it. The Historic Commission's recommendation regarding the building that's going to be torn down. Okay, so the Historic Commission encourages the applicant to retain this building. So help me understand too the notion that the owner and developer are tied by this condition, or the suggestion of that. And is that correct?
I guess, in the July 28th meeting, the concept plan was for the portion of the site that the developer intends to develop. And I guess the point that that the opposition slideshow was trying to make was that this concept plan is somehow, honestly, I'm not really sure what the the context that the neighborhood is trying to put that in.
Because the condition, regardless of who the owner is in the future and who the developer is in the future, would stand as long as they're subdividing.
Under separate ownership, under a different developer, that requirement would still stand.
Okay. And is it unusual for the city to require a reserved right-of-way in a situation like this? Or reserved right-of-way, I guess is what?
Under a concept plan, no, it isn't. You know, a concept plan is basically meant to, you know, under a lot of concept plans, they'll show it'll be similar to this. It'll be broken up into phases, but it'll be the same developer that intends to do all the phases, and they'll show a street and block and lot pattern for an entire area. And this one is a little bit different, where we have a parcel where one developer is intending to develop a portion of it and not necessarily a second portion of it.
Okay, that's all the questions I've got right now.
Jeff. Greg, can you go to the slide with the pink exhibit that the opposition put up? Yeah,
is it this one?
Yep. I guess I'm troubled by the lack of resourcefulness and creativity from the applicant. And I understand Mr. Wells has said that this alignment of the road won't work for various reasons. But I've got to believe there is an alignment of the road from this north to south design that would work, and yet we're not getting any creativity from the applicant, and it's the neighborhood that's doing this. So that I'm troubled by we sort of charge people with getting together over the last 60 days. Doesn't seem like they've made much progress to come up with a win-win. That's all I got.
I'm having trouble understanding on the subdivision regulations when we talk about interconnected streets. What is actually required? Because I read part of it, it says subdivision regulations which encourage an interconnected street system. Is it required under this situation, or is it encouraged, or am I misreading that? Thank you.
The portion of the subdivision regulations that talk about an interconnected street system, they're in 3-9, Part 4. It says the use of an interconnected street system shall be used to broadly disperse internal traffic and provide maximum alternatives for access to property for both public and private movement. So it's a pretty forceful statement by the subdivision regulations to provide the interconnected street network.
Andre?
I'm a little frustrated too that there was sort of a dig in that it has to be this entrance and only this entrance. I still am not convinced that Lowry Place to the east might not work with a culvert and a bridge. I'm interested in the other concept plan that showed protecting the house and routing things to the south. I think the neighbors were saying that you could access that northern portion of the property from Duncanwood if the traffic were not going that same way. I mean, those were there. I think I saw 3 new solutions that I don't understand why the developer has said none. I mean, we haven't heard any explanation for why none of that works. I guess that's one frustration I have. And I like the suggestion of, and I don't know if this is possible or in our purview, but for the staff to do a charrette with the neighbors and the developers, or the developers to do a charrette with them. But it just seems like there are some potential choices that haven't been explored enough. I was just curious how staff felt about that at the time. Did you all see these neighborhood proposals during the last couple of months?
They were presented to us. And, you know, staff has worked with the applicant over the last few months looking at different options.
Do you know why these are not feasible?
You know, the applicant stated at one point that these, you know, weren't feasible, and maybe they maybe it's just a matter of, there is a stream that runs along the south part of the property, and I think I don't want to speak for the applicant in this case, but it might be the portion of the property that they're proposing to develop, maybe the easiest part, maybe the most buildable, or maybe the most adaptable to this sort of subdivision layout.
This is an aside, but I just noticed that there was a comment about potential archaeological sites. I was just wondering if anybody had done any testing for that ahead of time. Do they know where they're suspected to be?
The archaeologist sent us a map, and I don't have it in the slideshow, but it shows a much larger area around this property. Maybe, I think it's at least a quarter mile wide and maybe a half mile long, saying that this area has been shown to have significant
So there's not
amounts.
any particular suspicion of something, or not suspicion, but thinking of
Not necessarily, but it is a
area.
requirement of the state archaeologist's office that that if anything is found, they'll have to take measures to mitigate for it.
I also wondered about if the Brookmead Drive connection that sits as a cul-de-sac now, I realize that doesn't solve a lot of the neighbors' complaints about bringing new traffic in there, but at least it's not in the curve. And I wondered if the developer had talked at all about connecting to Brookmead.
It's that, and in our last slideshow from July, we showed several different streets where there could be connections from, and for different reasons, for example, this drive over here, the street over here connecting into the school campus, that would have to go through or nearby the school campus, and then there's the stream running down the east side of the property, and all of these connections over here would be somehow impacted, or would impact that stream and would have to cross it, or would have to go through floodplain, possibly floodway somehow, and that was seen as an obstacle with having to get through stormwater approvals, stormwater variances for connecting to those. So Glendale and the Duncanwood locations were seen as the most viable for street connectivity.
Well, I also did hear the point, this is 15 houses. And anyway, I'd love to hear from the rest of my colleagues. I don't know where I stand.
Judy.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for clarifying that Glendale and Duncanwood are the only two viable connections. Is that what you said, based on everything that you know about this piece of property?
In discussing the options with the applicant and looking at the site, for having to go through environmental areas with environmental sensitivity and going through existing campus areas, those seem to be the most viable connections.
Thank you. About the historical building that's there, I don't know what kind of repair it's in. I don't know if the school is able to afford to keep it to that standard. So the historical committee did not say it could not be torn down. They just encouraged that if at all possible, it be preserved. Is that correct?
That's right, yes.
And I'm assuming that who knows what the condition of it is, and if they have the money to do that. Let me ask you about this concept plan that is before us today. Different from what they brought to us at the last meeting. I see where we've taken the houses from around the cul-de-sac to make sure that and that was done just to make sure that there was a possibility for any future connectivity onto Glendale. Is that right?
Right. Right. There were three submittals essentially. There was the first one that was shown there were the two that were shown in the neighborhood slideshow. Mm-hmm. One with a cul-de-sac with lots completely enclosed around it, and then the second. Is that the one
that was before us from the developer?
This one that's shown here in phase one on your slide. That was the one that went to the Planning Commission on July 28th. So it was revised. The original one was revised to this one before you all saw it the first time. And this is basically the Phase 1 was essentially, this same layout that you see in Phase 1 is essentially the same one that you saw
So
on
the
July
only difference in what I'm seeing today and what I saw, was it July?
It was July.
Jesus. In July is they've broken it out into phases.
My understanding is they bought an easement out of Phase 2 that Monroe Harding still owns in order to be able to add that cul-de-sac. So they've added that little bulb of property as an easement to what they're purchasing. It's not that there was a cul-de-sac up within Phase 1, and now they've bumped it down, showing that they are purchasing the easement so that somehow that bulb can be connected, but we don't know how.
So the people who are before us today have only purchased, oh, you moved the slide.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Phase 1. Somebody else owns Phase 2?
They're in a contract with the owner, Monroe Harding, to develop Phase 1.
To develop Phase 1. Monroe Harding still owns Phase 2. They're not willing to do anything with the Phase 2 because they think they want to sell it in the future. Is that?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember. Well, I think that just based on what I see and listening to both sides, that probably there is some more work that could be done coming together to try to find a more mutually satisfying way to develop this. I think, though, that the people who live in the neighborhood need to understand that it is going to be developed and traffic is going to come out onto Duncan Wood at some point. So that's not a private street. I understand, that it's narrow and small in the way this would impact safety and all that, but they have a right to develop their property, and it's facing Duncan Wood. So whether it's this developer or who, there can be some traffic there. They talked about that we didn't have a traffic study, so with just putting 15 houses there, that's not required, is it?
Right. Public Works didn't require a traffic study.
It's not required. Sidewalks are going to be constructed inside. What about there on Duncan Wood? Is there any plans for anything there?
No, the requirement is to construct sidewalks with development of this phase within Phase 1.
On Duncan Wood?
No, on the new street.
In there. So perhaps if they did a charrette or something, maybe something that would come out of that would be willingness to put some sidewalks on Duncan Wood.
The developer could agree to do that. That isn't a requirement of the subdivision.
I know, but when you get together and start negotiating with people.
Right. I'm sorry?
I was just going to say, in those kind of meetings, sometimes developers give a little in order to get. So, I think that's all I had. Oh, and then, but the way it is now, where did we, if we didn't do a traffic study, how do we know about the site distance? That is that something that you all did, that the site distance meets requirements?
It is a requirement of Public Works. It's in the staff report that the applicant will be required to demonstrate site distance.
Oh, so it hasn't been demonstrated yet?
Right.
Oh,
it'll be, I'm trying to just see when it would be. That's something that's usually required at the development plan phase, which is the next phase of development.
Okay. And what was it that you said that the developer didn't want to chose not to show at this time, the layout?
That could be referring to the specific layout of any road that would be required to go through Phase 2.
Oh, is that what we were talking about, layout? Okay. I just heard the word layout. We weren't talking about the lots, though, were we?
Again, the developer, the developer is in a contract with the owner to develop phase 1. To my knowledge, they have no plans to develop phase 2, which is essentially why they're trying to meet the requirements of the subdivision regulations through the note that any future connection will provide, any future development will provide. I'm sorry, any future plat will require street connection. It'd be difficult for them to show a street on there when they haven't done any design work for lots or development within phase 2.
Okay, and that's not anything that we can require them to do. I mean, if they choose not to develop it right now, they choose not to develop it.
Right. And the note
and they have that right.
And the concept plan for the entire site meets the requirements of the subdivision regulations.
Okay. Thank you.
Phil?
First of all, I want to congratulate the neighborhood. The format that you used, I'm not talking about the content, but the format is the best presentation that I have seen in the many years that I've been on this commission. So thank you very much for showing us how it can be done with just very little repetition, and that's one thing that you really came through on. Now, let me talk about the ideas, and the neighborhood came up with some interesting alternatives. But I think, and this is a legal question, that there's no way that we could require, in this case, the owner to buy additional land or come in from a different angle. I mean, the proposal is based on a specific phase 1 piece of land. Am I correct that we could not really force further purchase of land?
I don't believe that you could require them to purchase any further pieces of land for this plan that's been submitted to you.
And that's what we're considering today.
That's part of what you're considering today. Well, I mean, you're considering this plan, and there are various requirements for the approval of this plan, all of which I believe that has been approved by the various departments. The reason this is back before this body at this point is the concept plan that was not shown in the original application. It was felt by the department that was what was required, and now the applicant has presented the plan again with this note on the plan and the delineation of the phase 2 portion of the property. And I would say that, of course, the approval of the plan and whether this body feels that the concept plan was sufficient is what's before you.
Thank you. One of our responsibilities as a commission is to come up with, through discussion or whatever, maybe alternatives to the proposal that would be better. And in looking at this, I was trying to think of something that might improve the situation or address the comments, for instance, that the councilman was making about traffic, and that if you finally open up the road to Glendale, that there would be through traffic increase several times, whatever. Did anybody think about having a gated community? In other words, have a gate at the Duncanwood entrance to begin with, and then if there was a second entrance from Glendale, having a gate at that end of it. That would at least cut out anything other than just residents. Is that a possibility?
This is meant to be a public road with a street connection, and those can't be gated. I mean,
does it have to be? I mean, can it be a private road? I mean, they'd have to keep up the maintenance of it. I understand that, but is there any reason why it couldn't be?
I think a private road would have to, have some sort of overlay, like a PUD of some kind, to have that sort of possibility.
Short of that, what about traffic calming devices that would discourage people from coming in neighborhoods? I've been in neighborhoods. I haven't seen any really effective ones here, but in other cities I've seen one that have very effective speed humps that really keep people from using cut-throughs.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that, as phase 1 goes through its development plan approval, and when phase 2 gets developed, that's the intent of the subdivision regulations, is to discourage large amounts of through traffic. And working with Public Works on those approvals, the development plan approvals for the 2 phases, at that time, the layout of the street, the direction of the connection, any other measures needed to calm traffic could be examined.
Okay, well, I guess what this all boils down to is it looks like that maybe there's some more opportunity for improvement. That's the end of my comments.
Councilman?
I want to compliment the neighborhood, echo Mr. Ponder's comments, and I also am appreciative of the developer's efforts to maximize the open space that is here and to not max out the density that they have possible there. So those are some pats on the back that I'd like to offer. However, I do have several areas that raises a red flag for me. I don't know that there are questions specifically, but I have a concern over the destruction of this residence hall, the library, the historic property here that's going to be torn down. I have a concern over the state's remarks about archaeological remains that may be in the area, and there seems to have been no actual testing or looking to see if that is in fact true. I have a real concern for this neighborhood over the construction traffic that they will have to bear during the development of this. I mean, normally you think of a construction site that's close to other existing residences or businesses, and there's always a construction entrance to divert that traffic around and to keep all the dust and the debris and so on. These folks are going to have to bear the result or all of that traffic during the entire duration of this construction. And I think that may be one of my biggest concerns is trucks running up and down these streets and having to exit enter on the road that we're talking about that has issues already. I'm not when I look at the plan that was here back in July and the plan that we have now, the only real difference that I see is that there is the designation of the phases and the note that is on the plan now that there will be future connectivity if phase 2 is ever developed. So I'm not sure that there is a real change in the plan. I don't know. An absence of a traffic study, I know the Public Works didn't require that, but given the complexity of the intersection that's here and the multiple points of conflict that's possible from driveways and the streets, and that being in a curve, I just, I have a problem that there's no traffic study and impact. And then I'm perplexed. If Monroe Harding had planned to develop this in order to generate the funds for the operation of their facility and to upgrade and so on, and it was their purpose to eventually sell all of this space that's in phase 1 and phase 2, I'm perplexed as to why the school is the seller and the developer didn't look to put together a deal on phase 2 that has ample road frontage and make that phase 1 and then eventually develop toward the back. That seems to be an anathema to me. I have a hard time accepting that. And as I've listened around, as the commissioners have talked, there seem to be multiple possibilities, and I'm not sure that the developer and the school and the neighborhood have actually fully explored all of those possibilities. So I'm just, have multiple red flags waving in front of me that give me pause as we look at this.
Thank you. Hunter.
Having listened to the commissioners, I don't like the situation we're in. As a commissioner, we have a developer, property owner who has a non-starter, which is that they've got to connect to Duncanwood. We have a neighborhood that has a non-starter. You can't connect to Duncanwood. I haven't seen a win-win situation yet in any of the scenarios. So maybe there's not one. So I kind of have to put my planner hat on and sort of unfortunately forget about the emotions and such that we've heard tonight. And putting my planner hat on, connectivity is a good thing. It's Phil, you asked about gating the neighborhood, and I think the intent of the subdivision regs are to create connectivity to disperse traffic. And in fact, it's one of the problems with Green Hills right now is that so many neighborhoods like this aren't connected, and there isn't dispersion, and so all of the traffic goes to the same roads, and thus we end up with Granny White backed up for miles and other streets similar because of developments like the Duncanwood neighborhood that sort of dump all the neighborhood out in one place and don't give you options. Again, I think it's important for the community to understand that the issue with traffic is typically not volume as much as it's speed. Now, it's hard to control speed, so I think there were some good ideas thrown out there that could be discussed between the developers and the neighborhood about traffic calming, not only in the new development, but potentially within Duncanwood. The idea of sidewalks, the idea of connecting a construction road from the Monroe Harding driveway that comes from the south there makes a lot of sense to me. It would be a short little construction road to prevent having the construction there. But the staff recommendation is to make a connection and that I think they would hope would ultimately be there all the way through, which it sounds like neither the neighborhood nor the developer really want. But that, I am inclined perhaps even to take it a step further and suggest that an actual reserved right-of-way is established with the subdivision so that regardless of whether a church or what development ever happens there, that ultimately could be improved even by the city if necessary to provide connectivity. Probably not what the neighborhood wants to hear, perhaps not what the developer wants to hear because they probably like, forever being on a cul-de-sac. But that's my planner perspective, and I think where the staff perhaps is coming from as well.
Was that
a motion?
No, clarify for me if you would. If that was approved for the dedication of the road, you're saying that would be used then for construction traffic?
Well, certainly. I would welcome any further suggestion from the applicant or the property owner about why a connection to the south has not been presented or offered. There's an existing driveway there that could become the road that comes in. Ultimately, could be a reserved right-of-way, could be a construction driveway temporarily until it's further developed. And then Monroe Harding would just have their driveway connect off of that on the property.
Andre, you had a question?
If we put our planner hats on, we might think that we'd love to see this whole site as a co-housing site. It's ripe for that. It's got amazing green space potential. It's got a school-related children's facility. It could have mixed generations. If we were really planning, we would see this as a fantastic co-housing site that could coexist with the neighbors and could have enough egress in and out that is connected. The driveway you're talking about, I just looked at it. It comes out right in front of Park Glen Drive, which is another street that's a dead end. So that sort of makes sense. There might be multiple places if you arrange things in such a way that you protect the green and you cluster the housing along a number of little streets. You suddenly have a neighborhood that, I don't know if anybody knows about co-housing. They've been doing it in Denmark for years and around the country. And here it's come, and there are people in California now looking at Nashville. There are Nashvillians working on trying to get some co-housing sites. And this, to me, just seems like an exciting potential for that. And that's probably not what this developer had in mind. I don't know if they would ever consider it. But there might be ways to rearrange things so that you could reach out into these different surrounding streets and not dump everything into one place, which I think is the biggest concern. So it's back to how far this concept plan has really gone and if it's really been developed enough. It seems like at a minimum, not showing where the road is going to go or potential tie-ins to other surrounding streets, whether it's, I think I'm saying it right, Lowry or Park Glen or Glendale Square, other places it could tie in the future, it makes it an inadequate sort of plan, as a concept plan. And we don't really know if they've determined that it can't go here or there. We need to know why. If it's an engineering reason, well, that means in the future it can't go here or there. And we need to know why if it's really truly a concept plan, I think. So I think on that basis, we could say that it's not adequate as a concept plan, and then maybe that would give some time to get some more potential thought to what it could be, and to challenge everybody to come up with the magnificence that this site could offer, because I think it has so much potential. And it is a concept, the co-housing is really becoming in demand. It allows for mixed generations. It allows for protecting green space and gardening, and this to me smacks of that. So that's just a thought, but at a minimum, I think showing where the road would tie in a practical way that we know we can get, and maybe making it a reserved thing like you discussed so that it's real, would make it more of an adequate concept plan.
I have a question, legal question. Is deferral one of the options we have tonight?
We have a time limit that we're running on. 30 days, but is it 30 days from today? So, okay.
You could defer it 60 days, but have to make a decision within 60 days or it's deemed to be approved.
So you do have a time frame. You could defer it and have it come back with a more detailed concept plan if that's what the commission chose.
Well, here's part of my question has been, and I think some of the other commissioners have asked this, would it be a good idea at this point, I'm back thinking about Monroe Harding, that they want to sell property, needs to make money, so I feel sympathetic to that. Is it worth asking the developer now why they've said no outright to all these things? I mean, obviously they've thought through it. Can we ask him to speak to that issue?
Yes, we can.
Could we?
Spend a neighborhood of time.
No, she's.
I just
the
want to
protocol is commissioners can ask anybody any questions. So if they want to ask a question,
I just want to ask a specific question of all these other potential, the neighborhood plans and the ones that we've mentioned of different streets connecting to. Are there specific physical reasons that they can't work?
I believe if you ask your staff, they would tell you that the plan that they show that doesn't create the connectivity to Duncanwood would have been outright disapproved.
Because it's not connected.
Absolutely. So
okay.
we didn't. The owner didn't want the developer to present a plan that staff would outright recommend disapproval of because it contains both a cul-de-sac that's too long from Glendale and it doesn't include connectivity. So that wasn't appropriate. As far as why the developer won't purchase more property, I suspect it's like any other developer that doesn't purchase more property than they can afford to develop at a certain time.
No, we're not asking that.
We're not asking that.
We're asking about why we can't show roads into different places and why we can't show where a road would be.
A concept could be shown. It would be the first time in the history of the Metro Planning Commission, but a concept could be shown through phase 2. But to ask a property owner, Monroe Harding, to actually engineer and design a street through a piece of property that's not being developed would be unheard of. We can show a concept, and they're glad to do that. They're glad to agree to the construction road going off the driveway, allowing an easement for wherever the construction road needs to go. Monroe Harding is glad to do those things. That they can't, I mean, a road overall, that enormous, beautiful floodplain through the BZA-approved master plan, neither of those are things that are possible.
Again, Nikki Wells, if I might, I think I can address your question as far as on the Monroe Harding tract, the different rights-of-way, different streets that are surrounding it. Do you have if we can we'll just go around the horn. Okay, that is Brookmead. Mm-hmm. Brookmead is in the current floodplain. To make that connection, we would actually have to bring the road per Public Works and Stormwater up above the floodplain, which is a very substantial project. This other road here is scenic. That's across a creek in a floodplain, and it's actually a cliff that drops off as you make your way across. Either one of those options for a 15-lot subdivision, for a 30-lot subdivision, it couldn't bear the cost of doing that. So if we were required to make a connection to either one of those points, it would deem this property undevelopable, period. So from a financial standpoint, whether it's 15 lots or 30 lots, we've studied both of those, and the cost involved in doing that, the infrastructure that would be required, couldn't be borne by such a subdivision. Then you look at Granny White here. Granny White's going directly into the existing facilities. So for that reason, obviously, Monroe Harding has no interest in having a public road go through to serve a residential neighborhood. Then the other one here is Glendale. And if I can point somewhere right in here, that's where the floodplain stops. It rounds, all the way around through here. And you can see also this easement, which is a sewer line that in many spots is very deep. These are the different site constraints that when we look at the development of phase 2 in a future phase, that we have to be very concerned about. Even the fact you say, well, what if we went in and moved that sewer line? Again, very, very expensive process to do that. So we have to develop and design around those site constraints. So what would happen is this road would extend around and then connect back somewhere in conjunction with that road. I think, is that Park Glen?
Yeah, it's Park Glen.
Yeah, so it would line up with that road. Now, how you do that, again, I think there's minor variations how you could design that and create some traffic calming devices. But at the end of the day, there's only one way. You take this and you come around like that. Now, you might come up here and do a cul-de-sac and then come off of it. But what we're doing in phase 1 doesn't jeopardize any of the options that we would have in phase 2.
Just out of curiosity, to answer the council member's question, did you consider buying phase 2 and developing it as phase 1 first instead?
No.
Was it
Oh, well, no.
not an option, or was it not what you wanted to do?
I wasn't part of that discussion.
Have you and your client done a plan for phase 2 for a future development?
We did some plans on phase 2 at the request of this commission at the July meeting. Again, Monroe Harding doesn't want to show any type of layouts on phase 2 or even the road at this point, but we did do some plans that showed basically what I was describing. And it was one of them was a cul-de-sac coming off of Glendale, and then another road that connects back to our temporary turnaround, and another one was just sort of a straight shot that had significant curvature in it, which Public Works wasn't a big proponent of because of the tight radiuses of the curves, but that does promote traffic calming in and of itself. So we did look at it, and basically what we're doing in phase 1 doesn't jeopardize any of our options for whoever wants to come in and develop phase 2.
I have a question. You made a statement that our request that y'all did from a July meeting to do some conceptual plans on phase 2, but Monroe Harding's not willing to show that. What's to be hidden there that would keep us from making a decision.
My understanding was they didn't want to be obligated into, if we did show a rights of way on Phase 2, they don't have a buyer on Phase 2. There is no developer that's made an offer.
But you've only got, with the floodplain along the eastern side and the southern side, you admit you only have one way to come in and out. And I don't think there's any mystery there as to that's obviously, if you ever develop it, that's where it's going to have to be. And I think to make the owners or the neighborhood feel a little bit better about it, that you're not doing your homework there. I mean, I'm probably not going to vote one way or the other because the commissioner's going to make a decision, so I'm not emotionally tied to it one way or the other. But I think to be open and up front that, that we ought to see that layout and see what is feasible in the future. They talk about a church. I don't know if there's a possibility for a church in a parking lot to even be there. So I think that would help the commissioners and ease the neighborhood, settle their nerves down a little bit. Obviously, if we're going to prove anything on the commission, we're going to want connectivity. And it can be the subdivision by right can be there. It's just a matter of how you present it to the commission and have the connectivity there. So I'm like some of the others. I don't think we're quite there yet. I hate to say that because I know they want to make a decision tonight, but when you make the statement that they've looked at that, but they don't want to show it yet, that almost need to show that for us to be able to move forward. That's my opinion. So,
and I do agree with you. There is no mystery on how that will be laid out. There may be some variations, slight variations in the design, and but ultimately, they, as Monroe Harding, they may very well be willing to do that.
And that can also relieve some of the traffic that they're talking about that backs up trying to get out onto Granny White. So. No, No, only if the protocol. Let me explain. The protocol is that when the commissioner has a question, if anybody in here, they can ask it, but you can't volunteer anything because the public hearing is closed.
I thought you were curious about why the owner.
No, with the commissioner, maybe I'm not. So
would anyone be interested in having Monroe Harding answer your question, since I, as the engineer, can't answer that as far as
they're here? Yes.
Well, I was just going to say that we're asking the developer questions about property that they don't have under option. So I'd like to ask Monroe Harding the same questions regarding the connectivity to Glendale and the willingness to consider the sale of Phase 2 now versus Phase 1, and why. Who's driving the decision on? Is it which party is driving the decision on this being the first phase? Thank you.
I'm Mary Baker. I'm the CEO, and I don't know whether I can make this work or not. Nikki, can you? So there's supposed to be a little red dot. I don't know how to do this. I'm technologically challenged.
Just give it a little, push a little harder.
Well, maybe I'll just talk about it.
That's right. Staff will help you with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Start looking a little bit there.
Phase 1 is the 8.1 acres that Duncanwood is most interested in. I can't speak exactly why that is, but I think it's because it's the piece of the property that is is easiest developed, because there's not the floodplain issue, there's not the sewer line issue. It also has some trees on it that I think they hope to preserve. It gives them the opportunity to develop without having to completely destroy open space. They're going to provide open space on that piece of property. Phase 2 doesn't show a road, but could easily show a road from what we think would become a traffic calming circle, and come down and curve, and possibly have another traffic calming circle, and then come out about where our driveway comes out, or connect with that street across the property from us. But I would reiterate what Nikki said in terms of where the floodplain is. It's hard to see it up here, but so much of the remaining property is in the floodplain. And our hope is to keep that as open green space so that the development is in keeping with the gentle slope and the greenness of the neighborhood. And then just develop the few other lots that are going to be available that could actually be built on. We don't have any interest in Monroe Harding's campus suddenly being surrounded, packed in by residences or anything that we're not interested in trying to change the zoning of the land. Monroe Harding houses 24 young men on campus, and we have other people who come for training and development who work with foster children. And so we really believe in and want to preserve the gentleness of the campus and the gentleness of the 20 acres that we would like to sell. Clearly, we're hoping that there will be a developer for Phase 2 who is willing to purchase all that open space and make it an amenity for the neighborhood. That's certainly our design. We just don't have anybody that's come to us and said that they want to do that yet. But that's why we didn't want to show the road coming all the way through. We know it will, and we're certainly open to that. But our concern was that if we drew it and the Planning Commission accepted the concept plan, then a future developer would have their hands tied. That may or may not be true. But that was our concern for showing the road. But obviously, you can definitely come off of that traffic circle and then curve down and connect with the street.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
I like some of the things I heard, and before I'm going to move to defer, I'm going to suggest to the community a few things, because I know you don't want the connectivity, but as planners, we like to see connectivity. One thing to consider is you've got 60 homes in your neighborhood now that have 2 to 10 trips a day coming out of one entrance. You might actually see that there's a reduction in traffic going out on Granny White Pike once this connects. If there's friction, if there's traffic calming, if there's ways to discourage just bypass through traffic, trying to zip through, and there's ways to do that. But it might actually help the situation ultimately to have the connectivity. So I would suggest both parties drop their non-starters and go back to the drawing table with some of these ideas that we've talked about, that we've heard Monroe Harding talk about, and for the reason of not enough detail and information in the concept plan, I move that we defer indefinitely.
And keep the public hearing open.
Yes.
Second.
Got a motion second to defer indefinitely and keep the public hearing open. All in favor?
Wait a minute. Can I amend that? Or can you amend that for not indefinitely?
I definitely cannot amend it.
Oh, well, I mean, you didn't tell us, but we can.
But I would encourage you to get it back before this commission within the time frame allowed.
Yeah.
What is
60 days? Is that, or 30 days?
We could
60.
60 days is the limit, but I would encourage you to set it for the next meeting in 30 days. And if another deferral is needed, then you certainly have that opportunity.
We have only one meeting in November. Could it be that meeting?
I think there's only one in December, too.
There's a meeting on November 10th, and there's a meeting on December 8th.
November meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be within the deadline, the November meeting.
Okay.
With the December meeting?
Yes.
Both meetings would be, so I will amend my motion to defer to the November meeting.
And I second that also.
Is that enough time to?
Is that enough time to do anything differently? Is that 2 weeks?
I just think it gives yet another meeting if it's necessary, without us being forced to make it only having one more shot. I don't want to bring everyone back again, trust me, but hopefully we can get this. I mean, some of the ideas that were thrown out, I think we can get there.
Phil?
I don't have a calendar, but why can we not defer for 45 days?
Because it's only one meeting in November.
There's one meeting in November and one meeting in December. So either we hear it in November or December.
So December would put it at, how many days?
I think he was saying that
60 days.
if they couldn't, we'd get to see it in the interim, and then if it still hadn't come together, we could yet defer it again to December. If we defer it to December, we don't know anything until December, and then there's no more deferral time. Is that? Am I speaking for you? But is that what you meant?
Hunter, if you would just be a little bit more specific on what we're going to be looking for at that time, rather than just say we're going to defer and come back and neither side's reached any decision. We're looking for the conceptual plan on phase 2.
Yes, I don't think I should speak to the details because I'm not speaking on behalf of everyone here, but more detail in the conceptual plan of phase 2 was what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Do you want to include construction?
That's what?
Do you want to include construction?
The construction street?
Well, I mean, I could go through a list of things that I'd love to see included, but I think they've heard them and perhaps could...
I think it's a real concern of the construction going on in Glendale, so they just state that and let them figure it out. So the motion is to defer until the November meeting and leave the public hearing open. They've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I might see less traffic.
There's a way for this to be win-win. You want to go? Okay. Hunter, Phil and I are going to leave. We're going to go to the library for Donna soon.
Okay. You got to leave too? I think we may be losing.
Wait a minute. Are you leaving?
I have to leave and get my dog, but I can stay if I need to.
Phil and I wanted to go to the library for Donna Nash's thing. And you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You got 6 to put 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. Andre, Derek, y'all can stay the full time.
We've only got one more.
Probably about 20 minutes. Phil and I need to leave, and that's going to leave 6. So if anybody else has to leave, we wouldn't have a quorum. And
we'll cover your back.
Okay, Hunter, be sure that Ann's going to make an announcement about the thing on Tuesday, Bicentennial Park Award from the planning.
Okay.
And also, Phil, well, you're welcome. Phil, you know the protocols. Welcome him as a new commissioner.
Yeah. She's 13.
And also remind them that the
son's out of town.
Right now, Belmont.
Let me get something to eat.
Belmont's going to get back with us and see if the first Saturday and second Saturday both are open.
First Saturday of...
I believe it was just one of them. Kelly, was it just the first Saturday in November that Belmont had open? The 12th, yeah, November the 12th they have open, and we're waiting to hear back from the mayor's office to see if he can be here at that time.
Okay.
That'd be the retreat, and then this Tuesday, and we'll talk about the Bicentennial Park Awards.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you call him Bill Clayman for the parks, because he was at our last meeting.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome him aboard. Thank you, sir.
All right. Brenda,
I
item
have
12?
to wait till you have a couple more commissioners.
Oh. Yeah, we lost 2, but...
Yeah, they've just stepped out for a moment.
Okay, okay. So Derek, yeah, he's coming back. This will be exciting. Channel 3 time. Hopefully they cut it and start it. Oh, we're live right now, yeah. Brenda.
Okay, this is item 12 on your agenda, and it's a text amendment to address an issue with minimum lot size when a right-of-way dedication is needed. On occasion, we will get a subdivision plat for a residential property where before the dedication there is sufficient lot area to meet the requirements of the zoning code, but the dedication makes the lot too small to be subdivided. So I've done a little example for you. This piece of property that's on my slide is 20,000 square feet. It's zoned RS10, and so it could be subdivided into two 10,000 square foot lots. But as you notice, the right-of-way is only 45 feet, and it needs to be 50 feet in order to accommodate, for example, a sidewalk. And so then the lots would become smaller and in fact would only become 9,500 square feet. And so they couldn't be subdivided because we can't subdivide property that doesn't meet the zoning code requirements. So what we're proposing is to add a note to the minimum lot size tables that would allow the subdivision or the size of the lot to be considered on the pre-dedicated property. All other bulk standards would be based on the new lot, the actual lot size, but for purposes of this subdivision, we would say the lots were 10,000 square feet. So they could be subdivided, we could get our infrastructure, and I guess that's our win-win. And where this would be applicable is only, of course, in districts that have minimum lot sizes, which are primarily our residential zoning districts, and also for the mixed use, the office, an office and a couple of office districts that allow single-family housing. There's a minimum lot size, and that's where this would apply. For a commercial development, it wouldn't apply because there's no minimum lot size.
I thought mixed use, there are lots of mixed use neighborhoods that don't have that kind of minimum lot size.
If it's for a single family or a two family, there's a minimum 3,750 lot size, and that's also in the zoning code. I mean, that's the smallest lot that you would be issued a permit for.
3,750 square feet.
That's right, and that's the minimum lot size in those zoning districts.
So 38 or 30 something by 100 somewhere. I mean, I'm thinking like narrow urban lots.
That's right.
But aren't some of the narrow urban lots narrower than there's some that are 20?
If you're going to construct a single-family home in the zoning code now, there is a requirement that the minimum lot size for because you could have a substandard lot in any zoning district, but it needs to be 3,750 square feet in order to get a building permit to build a single-family house.
Even in the UZO?
Even in the UZO. That's for a single-family house. Now, if you were building multifamily, you could have narrow houses. Like if you had a townhouse development, it could be narrower developments than that.
Okay. Well, I'm about to get off track. Thanks.
Okay.
This item is open for public hearing. Anyone here to speak in favor or against? No? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Oh, and I forgot to tell you, my recommendation is to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any questions or comments?
What is the motivation for doing this? I mean, why are we having a need to?
What's happened is we've had a number of subdivisions that have come in and they need to provide sidewalks, so they need to dedicate right-of-way for the sidewalk. And if they dedicate that right-of-way, then they can't subdivide. And so the solution we had been working under was getting an easement, a pedestrian easement, rather than a dedication, which is not as satisfactory because Public Works doesn't like to have the public right-of-way on private property with an easement. And so this allows us to have that public infrastructure in the right-of-way.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion?
Move we approve staff recommendation.
There's a motion and a second to approve staff recommendation. All in favor? Any discussion? Sorry. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Brenda. All right. Quickly here. Remind me. 19 was on consent, right?
Yes.
And 20?
And 21.
Yeah, okay. There's no report from the historical, and that's actually the Historic Zoning Commission, not the Historical Commission. They're different. I've learned that. Councilman Claiborne, Phil asked if you could give a report from the parks.
I can give you a report on the first part of the Parks meeting. I was there at their last meeting to give a semi-annual update on the Friends of Two Rivers Mansion, the progress that we've made with that organization since last April. And former council member Will Hoyt was there and encouraged the commissioners to look at development of more open space in the area off Murfreesboro Road between the lake. And some of the neighbors were there and had some ideas, and so that was, I'm not sure what else they did.
Great. Thank you, Councilman. There's no executive committee report. Ann.
Okay. As you all know, Lakewood voted to dissolve their charter, and one of the tasks to incorporate the Lakewood properties, formerly Lakewood properties, into Metro fully is to place planning policies and zoning districts consistent with your Metro zoning ordinance on the Lakewood properties. We had initially had a work session set up with the planning commissioners to go over that. It was a casualty of the canceled meeting back in September, I believe it was. And we have not rescheduled that work session because, frankly, everything has gone so smoothly with the citizens of Lakewood in getting comfortable with the planning policies and getting comfortable with the new zoning districts. But I did want to let you know that this is coming up on your agenda, your next agenda, October 27th, I think it is, and you will really need to vote on that at that time. So when you get your agenda, if you have any questions whatsoever, please call us. We'll sit down with you and make sure that your questions are answered before you get to the meeting. But we believe that everything is going to be very cut and dried and agreeable to everyone. A couple of things on your calendar I want to mention to you. Next Tuesday, October 18th, and if the commissioners have not received one of these pretty blue posters, I'll email them to you. This is a celebration to acknowledge that the Bicentennial Capitol Mall State Park has been designated a 2011 Great Public Space by the American Planning Association. And the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation Commissioner and Tennessee State Parks has issued an invitation to this celebration next Tuesday at 1 o'clock, October 18th, 1 o'clock. It's going to be on the Jefferson Street end of the Bicentennial Mall near the Belle Carillon. If it's inclement weather, it'll be on the southern end under the railroad trestle. And it's a chance for folks to get together and show their appreciation for all the work that went into Bicentennial Mall. And congratulations on this really fine achievement. And I will go ahead and email you copies of this. And then finally, to remind you, I think you've all gotten my emails on a November 4th continuing education opportunity with Robin Rather. She's going to talk about sustainable development and new perceptions and political realities for planning, what's important to people in today's world, in today's climate, in terms of sustainable development. And this is on your calendar. It's November 4th, 1:30 till 4:30 at our second floor offices in one of the large conference rooms.
We're not talking about retreat days?
That's yours.
Yeah, I'll hit on that in just a second. And Councilman, before I ask you to give you a legislative update, the chairman reminded me as he was on his way out that he and we want to welcome you to the Planning Commission. Look forward to working with you. As you know, you have big shoes to fill. So, welcome. Is there an update from the council?
Very brief. We've had one meeting of the new council. We've got 17 new members, and when you stand up front and look back through there, it's a younger-looking group. I've now escalated to be the second oldest individual in the council. So, but we have an agenda coming up. Our public hearing is in November, so the bills that are on second reading are still relatively limited. So our next agenda is still fairly short, resolutions with a few second reading items, but we're getting started.
Great, thanks, Councilman. One last item. We are planning the retreat for the planning commissioners on either the first Saturday of November or the second Saturday of November. Belmont has indicated their facility is available on both of those, and we're waiting to hear back from the mayor's office as we hope he can attend as he has in the past. Any other business? If not, we're adjourned.